It's time for the opener. Jake Mintz. On Wednesday, we set the stage for the MVP awards. We said, yes, we know that Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani will win, but will they be unanimous, and who will receive votes beyond them? Let's begin with that first question. Because you have not yet seen the results, you have not looked at the ballots. So let's start at the top. Indeed, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge are your 2024 unanimous MVPs. So clap it up for Judge and Shohei. And when you first get that information, what are? Let's just start with Judge and Shohei before we get to the fun stuff for us. I mean, we've been talking about them all year. We saw them both in the World Series. They had very different ends to their seasons in the playoffs, although also their OPSs were nearly identical. But what will we remember about these 2 years, Jake?
So I am happy that they were both unanimous. There is a tendency for voters to have fatigue when it comes to the game's best players voting in MVP. The best example of this is LeBron James, who only has 4 MVP awards, which is the funniest thing to me, right? When Judge and Ohtani are the best players in the sport for most of the season, we have this moment in August where the baseball media industry starts to raise an eyebrow and go, maybe it's this other guy, maybe it's Lindor, maybe it's Bobby Witt Jr. And that's not to take anything away from Lindor or Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr., who has just put up one of the best seasons of the 21st century to not win an MVP award, deserves a lot of credit. Judge and Ohtani did not, it wasn't just a good MVP season. This was historic. Judge in particular, from an offensive production standpoint, 3 players in the history of the sport have ever had a higher OPS plus, an adjusted OPS, okay, than Judge did this year. Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, Ted Williams. This is not like, oh, Josh Donaldson put up a heck of a season in 2015. No, this was an all-time year that deserved to be recognized as unanimous. So for me, that's what I'm happy about. Because when, look, you win, it's on, the trophy's on your mantle, unanimous, not unanimous, whatever. I'm glad we can look back on it this way.
Yeah.
And remember these 2 seasons as completely abnormal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And for Ohtani to be, the first full-time DH to win the MVP, to do it with a 50-50 season that we've never seen before, to do it with that singular day that we will never forget that he had in Miami is really just so cool. And also this season, hopefully with Ohtani coming back as a two-way player, and hopefully we will see him continue to be a two-way player, this season hopefully will stand alone as his only season as a one-way player. And it's one of the greatest one-way player seasons we've ever seen. So I think that's another cool part of Ohtani's season in particular. So got a little bit more Ohtani stuff later. Judge, awesome. I mean, again, he has proven himself again with that OPS plus number. It's a reminder of how much better he was than average. That's what the whole point of that statistic. And that is what is so mind blowing, that he was able to have a season like this again. I know he didn't have quite as many home runs, but you could say overall it was even better than 2022, which I did not think was possible for him.
And part of that is because hitters were worse this year than they were 2 years ago as a whole. It was harder to hit. And he was like, not for me.
At least after the first 3 weeks of April. Right? He put himself in that hole and still managed to get to whatever it was, OPS plus.
And I wrote a pretty tongue-in-cheek, jokey piece about this up at Yahoo Sports about how Judge's struggles in October should not invalidate what he accomplished during the regular season, and vice versa. He did not play to his standards when it mattered most. That's a fact, right? But he still was an all-time dynamo for 6 months and deserves all the love and credit for that. And what do you want him to do? He's not going to melt the statue down and give the money to Brian Cashman so you can buy a new reliever. I think I just think we have to be able to hold multiple thoughts in our head at the same time.
Yep. All right, let's get to the fun stuff, Jake. You've been patient enough. We are going to begin with the American League, and we are going to work our way down the ballot.
Let's explain this bit for those of you who did not listen to the Wednesday show. On average, between 22 and 25 players every year receive MVP votes. There are 10 voting spots on every voter's ballot. So what that means is there are players that appear just once on one ballot. And what we tried to do on Wednesday was guess all the players that would receive a vote. Jordan has seen the results. I have not. This is the voting being revealed to me for the first time to see how close we got to nailing the ballot. And based upon a text you sent me last night, I don't think we did very well.
Yes, I will say, I'm just going to say up front, you did much better than I did. Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you right now, you should be feeling very good about yourself. However, there were certainly some things here that we couldn't possibly predict. We're going to begin with the AL because the AL is not quite as interesting. All right, we're going to go from the top. Aaron Judge first, unanimous.
Whoa!
Bobby, yeah, shocking. Bobby Witt second and did receive all 30 second place votes. Also, not that surprising. However, was that the case in the National League? Stay tuned. Third place, Juan Soto appeared on all 30 ballots. Fourth place, Gunnar Henderson appeared on all 30 ballots. Fifth place, Jose Ramirez appeared on all 30 ballots. That concludes the players that appeared on all 30 ballots. Okay? So think about that. We're already in an interesting position. Okay. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., sixth place. 29 of 30 ballots. More on that in a second. Tarek Skubal, seventh place. Okay. He appears on 25 ballots out of 30. Jarren Duran also appears on 25 of 30 ballots. He is an eighth. Yordan Alvarez, ninth place. 24 out of 30 ballots. Brent Rooker, 10th place. 21 out of 30 ballots, which again, hell yeah, Brent Rooker. We love that for you. Emmanuel Clase, 11th on 13 of 30 ballots. All right, now we're kind of rounding down here. Now we're getting into the weeds, all right? Cal Raleigh in 12th. Only 5 of 30 ballots. Was moderately disappointed with that, but hey, 12th place, he's on there. We guaranteed he would be on there. 13th is Rafael Devers, who received votes on 2 ballots. 14th, also 2 ballots, Anthony Santander. Okay. And then now we have the last players, Jake. So those are the only players that received multiple votes. Now we get to the last players who only appeared on 1 ballot.
So that's 14 players. We had 14 locks. We got 1 wrong in that group. We had Riley Green over Rafael Devers. Kicking it back to you.
Okay. So again, the remaining players, of which there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 players left, which again, we only got to 19 in the AL, which is less. We both did 20 locks and then pushed to 23, 24 after we guessed. There are only 5 more. Each of them only received 1 vote. Okay. The first one, I'm not going in any specific order, is Seth Lugo. So we had him on our list. He was a Cy Young finalist. He got 1 vote. The next one is Corey Seager. Corey Seager received 1 10th place vote, unfortunately, from our dear friend Levi Weaver, the Rangers beat writer. Now, why is that significant? Not because Levi voted for Corey Seager. It's because Levi's the only one that didn't vote for Vlad Jr. Levi, you're one of my favorite people in baseball media. Come on, my dude. Come on. Come on. Vlad Jr. got to be on there. He has to be on there. Anyway, okay. All right, moving on. So Seager, but not that we think Seager sucks. It's just that if we're picking Seager over Vlad, I wouldn't do that. Okay, anyway. All right, now we have 3 remaining. The first is a feather in your cap, Jake Mintz. Jose Altuve received 1 vote. Congratulations. He was one of your additional picks that I did not think would be on there, and he is there. The next one, and second to last one I will name. You laughed at me when I said Ronel Blanco, and that was wrong, but Framber Valdez received a vote. And as soon as I said Ronel Blanco, I was like, I should have said Framber Valdez, especially after on Wednesday, Framber Valdez gets down ballot Cy Young votes. I should have thought Framber as an option. I still would have predicted Reagans or Gilbert over him, so I don't feel that bad. However, Framber Valdez received 1 10th place vote. And finally, the grand finale, Jake. We never would have gotten this in a million years. This is a reliever. Another reliever. But he was more than just a reliever. He was everything. He did whatever this team asked of him, whatever inning at any time.
Albert Suarez of the Baltimore Orioles?
God. What is wrong with you? Tyler Holton. 10th place, Tyler Holton from, I believe, a voter in Toronto.
Tyler Holton, by the way, reliever for the Detroit Tigers. I think people maybe don't know who Tyler Holton is, which is why it's nuts that
if you watch the postseason, you know who Tyler Holton is. He was an extremely important, impressive pitcher for them the entire season, and he was kind of the face of, like, if you're trying to represent Tigers pitching chaos, I do think Tyler Holton is the correct pick. He had a 2.19 ERA in 94 innings and started 9 games and closed 8 games and awesome season. This, if we really dug into it, maybe I would have come up with this, but no. And also he was, very bad in the postseason.
Wow. So
anyway,
to review,
there you go.
Review, no Riley Green.
Yes. So here's who didn't get a vote who we expected. No Riley Green, no Stephen Kwan, no Kyle Tucker, no Sal Perez, no Josh Naylor. Those were the ones we thought were definitely getting votes. And then no Varsho. Just your prediction. No Logan Gilbert, Garrett Crochet, Marcus Semien, all else. So no Riley Green. Very interesting that the AL Central players, I know Tyler Holt gets on there. Again, you know why? It's because the managers. It was all the managers. These players are all the managers.
Yeah.
So anyway, there you go. There's the AL. Okay. So we did okay. We kind of overshot it, right? I mean, in some ways.
We did too much. Not a surprise.
Let's move to the National League. Shohei Ohtani, unanimous. All 30 first place votes. He's in. Francisco Lindor was on all 30 ballots. But he only received 23 second place votes. Yeah. We don't have time to really dig into all the minutiae of the National League ballot, but let's just keep it going. Ketel Marte, all 30 ballots. I believe he received 5 second place votes. I mean, Marte made a real push here. He was not that far behind Lindor. So how about that? That's it for players who were on all 30 ballots.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Marcell Ozuna, 4th place, 24 ballots. William Contreras, 5th place, 24 ballots. Bryce Harper, 6th place, 28 ballots. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, so he had the next most, even though he finished in 6th because of his point distribution. Chris Sale, again, the Scooble going 7th. Chris Sale finishes in 7th with 22 ballots. Ellie De La Cruz, 8th place, 21 ballots. There was some very strange Ellie votes that I am going to move right past.
I did not vote on this award. I would have had Ellie like 4th or 3rd on my ballot, personally.
Yeah. Yes. Jackson Merrill, 9th place, 19 ballots. Many people making a note. Jackson Merrill, oh, you got more MVP votes than Paul Skeens. Why didn't he win? It's like, okay, I understand that sentiment. We're all going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Jackson Merrill might win an MVP in the future. 10th place, Willie Adames, 16 ballots. 11th place, Matt Chapman, 10 ballots. Doing pretty good so far here. Zach Wheeler, 12th place, 8 ballots. Who's in 13th? Mookie Betts. 13th place, 10 ballots for Mookie. Jurickson Profar in 14th with 7 ballots. Kyle Schwarber in 15th place with 6 ballots, 6 votes. In 16th, we have who is in 16th? I lost it. Oh, Manny Machado. Okay, sorry. I'm jumping ahead here, I guess. Manny Machado, 16th place, gets on 4 ballots. Neither of us picked Machado.
Yeah.
I picked Tatis. Was he on here? Stay tuned. So, okay. All right. Machado 16th. That's a whiff for us. He got four ballots there.
We don't know.
17th, Freddie Freeman.
Yep.
3 ballots. Okay, we had him on there. 18th was a player that received 2 votes. I don't even think they were both 10th place. Luis Arraez. Again, not the Padre we considered. I'll tell you now. Tatis was not on here. So whiffed on Tatis. Okay, 19th. Now we're getting goofy. So 19th.
Just to be clear, you have not said the names Paul Skeens or Teoscar Hernandez yet.
They are next. They both only received 1 vote each.
Okay.
But they did get on there. Okay, so Skeens and Teoscar are on there in 19th, but because Arraez had multiple votes, we have there. All right, Jake, now we're getting to the fun stuff. There are 3 names remaining. I'm actually going to save one of them for last, even though he didn't finish last. Jackson Chourio received 1 vote. Congratulations. You got that.
Nailed it.
I, who assumed that Corbin Carroll, Shohei Managa, Ryan Helsley, or Fernando Tatis Jr. would receive votes. None of those guys received votes.
Idiot.
Corbin Carroll did not receive a vote. Dylan Cease received a vote. Sure. Great season, Dylan Cease. Another Padre that was not Tatis. So how about that? I picked Tatis, and we ended up having Machado, Arraez, and Cease. Wild. The last player, Jake,
Brenton Doyle.
is not Brenton Doyle, but it's as close to Brenton Doyle as it could get. Ezekiel Tovar, 2 votes.
2 votes?
Both from the Colorado chapter, which means that you had the right idea. You just had the wrong position. Because Ezekiel Tovar, like Brenton Doyle, was an average hitter with marvelous defense for the Colorado Rockies. But you were focused on the wrong guy. Both Rockies voters gave Tovar a down ballot vote. And that concludes our National League ballot, which means Eugenio Suarez did not receive a vote. Seiya Suzuki did not receive a vote. Corbin Carroll did not receive a vote. That's it. There's your National League MVP ballot. Thoughts?
I can't believe the Padres stuff is bonkers that Machado, Arraez, and Cease got votes. The Arraez getting a vote is just a great reminder that there is a segment of ball writers who just love singles, and that's okay. Shouts out to them.
Batting average. I mean, again,
love batting average.
Titles. We love that.
I love how on it I was with Tovar, that the homerism, no fan base and baseball area is more insulated than the Rockies. Right. I'm reading a book right now about America in the 1930s. They are the isolationist nation in our world. And so it does not shock me that there's like a level of this dynamic does not surprise me.
Tovar is an awesome player. Tovar led the National League in doubles.
Great. I'm happy for him.
And was
I'm happy for everyone in Denver.
Stops. But that 295 OBP is probably not MVP worthy. Tovar is awesome. I'm glad he got multiple votes. It's incredible.
Multiple.
But both from Colorado. Yeah, so there you go. But there was some other goofy stuff. I mean, you'll dig in, and I'm sure we can do some more specific ones. But there you go. There's your MVP ballots. I mean, I think we did okay. I'm not super proud of my performance. I think who's the most surprising omission? I think Riley Green is a more surprising omission than anything in the National League. What do you think?
I agree. Seiya Suzuki is the one that surprised me.
Yeah, but it's just not a good team. Like Riley Green was like the only like no doubt good hitter on the Tigers.
Well, my big gripe with the Chicago Cubs is that they don't have anyone who gets MVP votes on their team. And look, no one got MVP votes on their team. So that makes me feel a little bit good.
That's very true.
I enjoyed this exercise. Trying to predict this is so dumb and so goofy and fills me with a lot of glee.
That was great.
Very quickly.
Enjoyed that. Yeah.
Very quickly on the Cy Young.
Yeah,
Scooble unanimous. Great.
Yep.
Duh. What a thing. What a player. What a year. Chris Sale, 26 first place votes is about what I expected. Zach Wheeler was closer to Chris Sale than you think. I would have voted for Sale. I would have wanted to vote for Wheeler, considering he got screwed in 2021. But it's not like Sale didn't earn this. Like, this guy finished up at the top of voting for so long. It's great that he finally got it.
Yeah, and Chris Sale revealing he, of course, was doing, this goes on Foul Territory, talking about how before he was traded last year, him and his family were basically preparing for 2024 to be his final season.
Can't do that now.
That's pretty amazing. And then the other amazing thing to remember when I went back and wrote about Sale is not only did the Braves feel confident enough, like, yes, we will trade for you, despite your barely having pitched the last 4 seasons. And
they extended him.
They extended him immediately. We were like, what do you need to do that for? And boy, does that look smart, right? Fried is, probably about to leave, and like Sale now just looks like one of the best pitchers in baseball again. I mean, that is, talk about a stroke of GM genius from Anthopoulos. I mean, that is pretty impressive. But also, you can imagine Sale's like, oh, you're going to give me another guaranteed, however many millions of dollars when I was expecting for this upcoming season to be my last year. I'm sure that's why he was like, oh, sure, let's do it. So anyway, Chris Sale is a hell of a story. I'm very happy for him. And Scooble's a beast, man. Scooble's an absolute beast. And I hope that this is the beginning of him as, being one of the best lefties of his generation. But you can't let seasons like this just happen and expect them to happen again, because it's possible that was the best season of Scooble's career, and we should appreciate it as such.
That's the end of voting season.
Yeah,
I didn't see any voter. Yeah, me too. No, I didn't see any voter fraud. No evidence of voter fraud at all in any of these ballots, which is important. No hanging chads either.
No.
But we can take award season, put it in our pocket, and move forward into the winter. We're about to take a break, but before we do, I would like to just introduce our guest. We are going to have on a gentleman by the name of Caleb Durbin. Caleb Durbin is a prospect in the New York Yankees system. Caleb Durbin is about 5'7" and a ball of baseballing fury. Caleb Durbin and I, Jake Mintz, played baseball in college at the same place, Washington University in St. Louis. We did not play together. Caleb showed up 2 years after my tour of duty had concluded. But yet I've known Caleb for some time as the kid who showed up after me and was really good. And now Caleb Durbin is on the cusp of being a Major League Baseball player for the New York Yankees. And I have many, many questions for Caleb. So let's take a break. And when we get back, you will hear 2 Washington University Bears talking to one another.
And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. We are now thrilled to be joined by a very special guest. His name is Caleb Durbin of the New York Yankees. Caleb, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me.
Now, there are many prospects and Yankees players. None of them mean as much to me personally as Mr. Caleb Durbin, who has 438 more career plate appearances for the Washington University Bears than I do, because I had one baby struck out looking. It was a ball. Caleb Durbin, Division III icon, the pride of every mediocre baseball player with big dreams. I am thrilled to have you here, and I have a million questions for you. But what I think I want to begin with, for people who are maybe not familiar with you, explain to a casual person why you going from a Division III small school to now the cusp of the major leagues being added to the Yankees 40-man earlier this week. Why is that journey abnormal?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think many people are tapped into D3 baseball as you guys are, especially media in the big leagues now, but it's definitely wild. I mean, you go from um, I mean, my junior year was the year right after COVID, so you're not playing in front of anyone, right? Even Division I programs, I think they're probably playing in front of a lot of fans that following year. We're wearing masks on the field, not playing in front of anyone. Um, and then you're kind of going from that, and then 4 years later, you're trying to play in front of 50,000 people in the Bronx. So that in itself is obviously a pretty big difference. But as far as the exposure goes to even get an opportunity, um, a little bit about like how that even came about. I was obviously drafted by the Braves, and I remember the Brave Scout came to a game in the middle of nowhere in DePaul, Indiana. And it was one of our later games in the year, and I think I hit for the cycle. I had the best game I had ever played in my life. And of course, like the Braves, that was the one game the Brave Scout went to. And obviously, I had pretty good relationship with him, talking on the phone and stuff, and then put together a pretty good game for him to try to convince everyone else with the Braves to pick me up. But yeah, it's definitely a big difference, and I mean, not a whole lot of people take that path.
So I am going to use that incredible reference to Greencastle, Indiana, as an opportunity to ask about one of the big parts of why you have gotten to where you are, because it's not just, and I know you've been asked about this before, but the fact that you mentioned that DePaul series is notable. One of the skills that Caleb Durbin has that stands out in any context and that has carried over is that you do not strike out. And I bring that up because the funny thing is the game after your cycle against DePaul was your first strikeout of the season as a senior. And that was not until the beginning of May. And so this is the skill that has kind of carried over. And of course, playing multiple positions in the infield. But when you're talking about hoping that a skill translate from a lower level of college baseball to the professional ranks, that's one that I think you can imagine teams tapping into, but it's not a guarantee. So I want to talk about that skill, that contact skill. When was that a thing where you're like, oh, I am good at avoiding this thing that is bad in baseball? When did that contact ability become something you were like, oh, this is something that I can do better than my friends that are also playing baseball?
Yeah, I think I've always had that just kind of ability to put the ball in play. Just my philosophy, like as a T-ball player, was really just you can't score runs if you don't, or you can't get on base if you don't put the ball in play, and you can't, score runs if you don't get on base. So, that was just, I thought it was just a natural part of the game. I think through just all the reps with my dad in the batting cage after school, it just got better and better at it. And it's funny because I was, even in Division III, I was never an All-American. I don't even think I was all region my junior year, the year I got drafted. So obviously there's other dudes putting up crazy numbers at the Division III level better than me. But again, it was kind of that only striking out 2 times that year to, slugging pretty good, and then obviously walking at a pretty high clip, that they saw that combination of, okay, maybe this has a chance to, play at the next level. And even so, I don't think they expected me to, to play at the level that it's been playing at. So it wasn't really until the Yankees traded for me and told me, it was the first time a, professional organization, the coaches in there were like, dude, this is a legitimate elite tool that you have that's like big league ready right now, if you can sustain it. And if we could get these other tools to kind of get to average or above average, you can be a big league player. And that was the first time where I was really told, felt like that I could, that tool can carry me, quite a ways.
So I want to ask about when it became not clear to you or possible to you that you could be a professional baseball player as your career. Because, I was at a wedding last weekend with all of the dummies that I played with at WashU. None of us, when we showed up, had anything resembling professional aspirations. Now, one guy in my class got some looks from the Astros, went to a couple camps, but when he shows up on campus, he's there to play baseball in a fulfilling manner and get a good education. You are now going to play for the New York Yankees. At what point from committing to go to a Division III school to right now did it almost teeter for you where it was like, this can be my job, this can be my life?
Yeah, I think I've always had, even in high school, I've had kind of a delusional optimism about my own abilities. I think I've always probably thought I was better than I really was.
Yeah.
I put up good numbers in high school. Um, I started as a sophomore at shortstop and leadoff hitter, so I was always playing on good travel teams. So, but also I didn't realize that I lacked, the power tool. I lacked these tools and projectability that really kind of takes you to, playing at a Power Five school and stuff like that. So like Stanford was my dream school. I wanted to go to Stanford and play for 3 years and get drafted. Like that was my dream. Or an Ivy League school, at least. But obviously once that didn't play out and I ended up at Wash U, I understood that, okay, if I do want to play at the next level and play pro ball, definitely going to have to play in some good summer leagues now, for just from a realistic standpoint, like what am I actually going to have to do? Because obviously I understood the odds were kind of stacked against me. Just from an exposure standpoint, not going to get a whole lot of scouts in DePaul. Luckily there was one
No.
there, but
Oh man.
so I ended up playing more wood bat summer league games, in the South Florida League and in the Northwoods League than I even did playing for Wash U. And I think that definitely helps a lot. Definitely helped with my development. I know that for a fact, but also from an exposure standpoint, I think it played a big role. Going into Wash U, I knew Coach Bloom had those connections to those Wisconsin Northwoods League teams just from being at Stevens Point. So there's other things that kind of went into my confidence in in the dream that I could play pro ball. I felt like it could be a realistic thing heading into Wash U. And I just needed a little belief and a little confidence in that for me to take it and run with it.
Because like if I'm a junior at any Division III program and a freshman shows up thinking he's going to play professional baseball, like that kid's an idiot, right? That kid's an idiot. He's an idiot because that's just not, the odds are outrageous.
It's not why you're there.
And so
it's not why you're there.
That's not why, like, hey, Caleb, great to have you. Hope you're good. But like, we're all here to get a good education and drink some beers and, be good at baseball within the specific context. And I think what you talked about, and I know it's probably weird to look at this about yourself, right? But like, you never didn't believe, like you just, in your mind, you always thought you were good enough and you had to be irrational. Every good Major League Baseball player has to have, or athlete at all, has to have a level of irrational self-belief. And if you don't, you're doing something else. You're wearing a suit. You're sitting behind a computer like us idiots, right? And to hear you talk about it, it's not like you got to a point where it changed. It was in you the whole time, right? Like you didn't have to necessarily learn that.
Yeah, I think I've always had it. I've always been competitive growing up, and if to your point, like if I had that same mindset that everyone else around me at the time had, yeah, I wouldn't be here. So you have to, and they were probably more realistic in their expectations of me than at the time. But again, to even have a shot, I had to think that way,
Right.
At least that was my thought process back then. It's funny though, because I remember I didn't talk about it a whole lot. Obviously, Coach Bloom, he knew that I had a pro ball aspirations and whatnot, but I'd be walking. I remember one time I was maybe after practice walking to the cafeteria, and Jake, these people, but I was talking with Matt Ashball and I told him, like, I don't forget how it came up, but he's one of my teammates at the time. And I think I was a sophomore, he was a junior. And I said, yeah, I think I could get drafted next year. I think we were probably just messing around, but obviously I was kind of serious about it. And he just laughed. He just chuckled like, yeah, right. And now I'll give him credit. He's one of my biggest supporters now. He's followed my journey all throughout. He was probably joking at the time too, but it is things like that. Like, it's not something I talk about a lot. It's just something I believed
Yeah.
inside that I could do, and I went about it quietly. I just went to work every day, and um, obviously wanted to win a World Series too. So I was around my teammates all the time, and I mean, I lived baseball and went to class, and that was about it.
Because I think this is something that maybe people don't understand about smaller level school baseball is even though it matters to nobody outside of that context, it matters the same or similar when you're in it. And so it's not like you were around people who didn't care about getting better. It's just that the end goal there is a different thing. Again, shouts out to Matt Ashbaugh. I would have laughed at you too, because when you are at a D3 school, the energy is don't quit your day job, right? Like that's the whole thing. And so it is very impressive the way that you seem to have gone about it. And I'll just speak to, Coach Bloom, who we both played for. He knew. I remember getting texts from him when you showed up on campus in 2019, and Coach Bloom, who has had other big leaguers, JP Fireeisen, Jordan Zimmerman, he knew. He was like, this kid is different. He is starting at shortstop as a freshman. There is no doubt. And at that moment, it was kind of clear to all the alumni that like Caleb had a little bit something different. Now, this is moving forward to my next question. You get drafted by the Braves, and you get drafted because you can play infield and you got wheels and you don't strike out. It was probably clear to you pretty early on that your path to becoming a Major League Baseball player was to develop power, more power than you had shown in college. Now, part of that is because it's impossible to hit at our home field, which is why I had a low ERA. Shouts out to Pitchers Park. Once you made that realization that I need to develop more power, what has that process been to this point now where your power is, good? Like, you're not Aaron Judge. We both know that. But like, your power is going to be playable at the major league level. Tell me about that process.
Yeah, I think obviously there's some swing changes that go on with that. You get away with a lot more facing 85 in D3 than you do against 95 in pro ball. So I think that rookie ball year only had one extra base hit in 18 games. So right away, I knew I had to make some adjustments there. There's more swing adjustments that offseason than anything that kind of helps me get a little more slug that next year. But it really wasn't until I got to the Yankees where they basically, they went through swing decisions, swing and miss and contact quality, those three things. And basically I was able to change my mindset to, okay, I'm confident I'm not going to swing and miss. Like that's, I don't have to worry about that anymore. So I'm fine swinging and missing more and striking out more if it's going to mean I have a better approach at the plate. I'm trying to do more damage because was the biggest thing for me. I think I was cheating myself and trying to put the ball in play when I didn't have to do that. I had to think, do damage, pull the ball in the air, whatever I had to think to get better results in my batted ball, I had to do. And I didn't have a choice, like you said. Like the swing and miss is great, but that alone wasn't going to do the job. I had to get better at the other areas of my game. And it's still a work in progress. Like I'm still trying to, obviously, I want there to be no weaknesses in my game. So I'm obviously still trying to work on that. But that was the biggest thing, I think, that mindset of don't cheat myself. Like, don't worry about putting the ball in play. Worry about doing damage and hitting the ball hard. And that alone, I think, was a pretty significant change in results, was just that approach at the plate.
Because also when you're playing D3, if you put the ball in play, you're probably gonna be safe. Just because defenses are worse and you're fast enough, you are incentivized to not drive the ball in a weird way. Whereas in pro ball, the margins are so much smaller that you really do need to make dynamic contact more regularly. Jordan, what were you going to ask?
Well, I was just going to say, and it's not like you forget how to, put the ball in play. You still ended up walking more than you struck out. Like, it's not like those skills evaporated. You're just giving yourselves more opportunity to impact the baseball in a real way. I want to get back to something you said earlier, though, because it's clear you've had that self-belief for a long time. You did also say that it wasn't really until the Yankees traded for you that it was like, oh, wait a minute, like this big league dream is not just realistic, but like very much within reach. if I can make these adjustments. And I got to say, if anyone is going to, understand, see the value in a Caleb Durbin, it's Brian Cashman, who he himself was an undersized Division III infielder. So Brian Cashman, he knows a little something. He can appreciate your journey as much as anybody else. But you've, of course, made it much farther in professional baseball than he ever did as a player. As far as joining the Yankees, it's not like the Braves are some irrelevant team that people aren't talking about. But I'm curious, especially in the second half of the season and then in the fall league, what has it been like as playing for the team that everybody talks about more than anybody else? Like, I don't know if you had any associate. I know you grew up in Chicago. I don't know if you were a fan of any specific team, but people, especially prospects, Yankees prospects get talked about just the same way the Yankees players get talked about more than anybody else. Yankees prospects get talked about more than anybody else. So what has that experience been like playing for the team? Even when you are in Somerset or Tampa or Scranton, like people are paying attention, or the fall league, like people are paying attention. What has it been like then seeing very prominent people that are not just us dorks with a podcast about Division III baseball, right? I mean, I thought that someday we'd have you on our D3 podcast, not on this one. And now here we are, right? So what has that been like having a lot more attention on you, especially this past season with the Yankees?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I feel like I'm pretty spoiled in that way, just because, I mean, Scranton is a little bit out there. We don't pull too many fans, but Somerset was we get packed almost every night. So the fans are pretty incredible. I can't imagine how they are at the big league level, but even at the minor league level, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, it's, again, going from that D3 scenery to now you have actually a lot of people following you and watching you and caring about what you're doing. It's
right.
It's what you want as a player.
Sure.
It's what you work for. And I mean, people say pressure's a privilege, but having that background of kind of where I came from at Wash U and not having that and kind of just doing the same thing, like grinding the same way, but no one even caring. It kind of takes all the pressure out of it now. It's because I realize how much of how long of a road it's been, and I mean, obviously you want your work to be noticed. So it's pretty incredible.
Whereas, to compare it to, say, like Spencer Jones, who was a first round pick out of Vanderbilt and a big prospect, or Anthony Volpe, who Major League Scouts knew about when he was like 12, those guys, their whole time, obviously their motivation comes from the internal as well. But there are all these other external factors that have always been around for them. Whereas for you, there was a point where no one on the planet but you and your dad and like your college coach gave a crap about how good you were going to be. And so I would imagine that at that point, you have to motivate yourself. Like, you're getting yourself out of bed to lift, right? There's no one else that's doing it for you. How has that experience been? Do you still feel like you're the person driving that bus now? Or is it, that if you show up next year and you suck, that there's 50,000 people who you've never met in your life who are going to be booing you? Like, how do you balance those two things?
Yeah, I think that inner motivation, it's always going to be there. I think, one, it's been that way for so long that I can't imagine it not ever being there. With that, my expectations for myself because of that have always been greater than anyone else's expectations for me. So I can't imagine playing in Yankee Stadium and I have a poor performance or something. And these are the things you kind of have to think about is, like my standard for myself, my expectation is never going to be less than what anyone else. So no one's ever going to have higher expectations than me. So I'm going to feel some type of way about myself because that comes from the inside, not because anyone else is upset at me, or booing me, or, you know what I mean? It's come from the inside my entire life. And that's going to it's going to be like that the rest of my life, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I think about this sometimes, like being at Yankee Stadium all the time, guy in the Yankees strikes out, crowd boos. It's like he's booing himself.
Yeah, exactly.
In his brain, right? And
he doesn't need Frankie in section 215 to tell you that wasn't good enough.
Now, there is a part of that experience that is unique and has, over time, I have seen that pressure eat people. and I have also seen it propel people, right? And so I think that your thought process of your own expectations being larger and have always been larger than what anybody else has for you because of your unique path, that does seem particularly well suited for the cauldron you're about to step into. Jordan, you have a question?
My final question for you, Caleb, is also kind of Yankees adjacent. Just now that you've spent a couple of years with them, I know you were in big league camp. Are there any guys that you've gotten to know that, obviously Yankees fans listening to this are very familiar with? This isn't me being like, oh, surely you're going and hanging out with Aaron Judge every day. But since you've been in the Yankees organization, are there other players, maybe some that haven't made the big leagues yet, that you've kind of become tight with and are excited to maybe be teammates with sometime soon?
Yeah, I think one of the best parts about as you get to the upper levels of the minor leagues is the guys you're playing with start to get the call and start to make an impact on that roster, which is unbelievably cool to see from from the outside. Austin Wells is a guy that I've gotten a chance to play with quite a bit last year before he got called up, and got super close with him. So he's seeing his success, Rookie of the Year finalist, that's been, really cool for me to see. And then Ben Rice is another dude that I've had the chance to play with a lot. He's been an unbelievable hitter as long as I've known him with the Yankees. So had to have those relationships outside of the field. You guys have been around baseball and played baseball long enough that that those relationships outside of the field is what kind of makes it so cool to play at that level with them, So those are two dudes that probably two of my closest friends in the organization. Then obviously getting the chance to talk with Judge a little bit, he's unbelievable captain. But yeah, a bunch of the other guys too. But those guys are guys that I actually have relationships, outside of the field with.
Because when you get traded to the Yankees and like they're winning or losing games at the big league level, like obviously you want the team to do well, but you're not invested in the same way. And then when you have relationships with these people, we have it, with people that not that we've played with, but that we know, that we root for, that we care about. Like I can imagine for you flipping on the television this October and watching like your friend Austin Wells, like go yard in Cleveland, like it elevates the experience. And I can imagine for you watching the Yankees in the postseason this year, did you have FOMO? Were you like, God, like I need that. Like I want that.
Yeah, it was tough too because I was playing in the fall league, so I was trying to focus on that.
Right.
But deep down, everyone I knew where I wanted to be.
Right.
But yeah, I think a big part of that too is like seeing Wellesley and Rice do their thing this year. So in my head, it's like I was just playing with those guys, competing with them a couple months ago, and now they're doing it at the highest level. So it just builds to that confidence of like, man, I can do this. Like I was just playing with those guys who are now playing at the highest level. I can also play at the highest level. So you take those little victories of other people, and you just build on them yourself.
I have one final question, then we're going to let you go. It's only right. We have to do this. When did you meet Jake for the first time, and what were you thinking? Like, man, what's this guy's deal? Because I know when Jake started telling me, like, man, I heard about this Durbin kid. He sounds really good, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Excited to see how good he is. But I'm sure there was another side to that story. So, as a WashU kid coming in, and you hear about this Jake guy, he's got a lot of followers on whatever this social media website is called. So, what was your early experience with Jake? We got to ask.
I obviously first heard about Jake my freshman year when, all the upperclassmen were talking about him. And I think it was one of your guys' podcasts. One of my teammates, it was probably Matt Ashball. He's always tapped into your guys' stuff. And he was like, yeah, you're getting some buzz around D3. I'm like, buzz? Who is talking about Division III baseball? And he's like, no, it's Jake Mintz. Like he was in the All-American for us. I'm like, what? And then I went on it, and you guys were like, yeah, my sources say Caleb Durbin's a pretty good ball player. And that's the first time anyone's ever talked about
that's
me.
Right.
And it was
that's
you guys.
right. That's right. Hey, and that's why we're here today. That's why this is really just a way to give ourselves compliments, right? Because truly, this here, Durbin, look what he's doing with the folly. Got to get him on these spots. No. Who was first? It was us.
I went to St. Louis in April of 2019 to like just be around and see people watch the team play. And so that was the first time I saw you in person, definitely the first time I met you in person. And, any freshmen starting at shortstop for any college baseball team, like they don't suck, right? And so I think that for me was the first time I met you. And then going out to watch you guys play in the D3 World Series, driving from here in New York to Iowa like a nut, like getting to watch you in that atmosphere was so cool. And like, not to be the sappy guy here, but like when you have someone who not that you even play this, but like has been through those same points in life as you and understands those things, it's amazing to watch and to follow. And like it heightens the experience of watching baseball because there's 700 Caleb Durbins, right? There are 750 big leaguers, and every single one of those people has people who are involved or adjacent to the journey. And I consider myself fortunate to be 0.0000001% of you climbing that ladder at all, right? Of being able to witness it. And I consider myself very lucky. And that's something that I hope that you, from time to time have the ability to kind of reflect on that. Yes, your motivation is for you, but even when no one cared, people cared, right? And I think that is true about every single ball player.
Caleb Durbin, we are so excited for you and really appreciative of your time, and we're just wishing the best for you, man. So thanks so much for coming on, dude.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I'm glad this could kind of come full circle a little bit.
And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. This week was the owners' meetings here in New York, where all the owners meet with one another. I did not go. Why? I'm not sure. Manfred, Rob, the commish said some stuff, some of it actually notable, including this little nugget about Roki Sasaki that he expects the Japanese phenom to sign in the next posting window in 2025 and not the current one in 2024. Without getting too much in the weeds, this is relevant for a number of reasons. One, you don't have to think about where Roki Sasaki is going to go for like another 3 weeks because we probably won't hear anything about it. Okay. And the other, I wrote about at Yahoo Sports, and it's this very complicated dynamic of how Sasaki being in the next international window is going to create potentially a whirlwind of chaos in the international market. Here's why. Every year, teams have a certain amount of money that they can give out to international amateurs. The overwhelming majority of those international amateurs are teenage prospects from Latin America. Sasaki, being an international player under the age of 25, is lumped in with that group, which, yes, does not feel right. All of the money, not all of the money, a lot of the money that these teams are going to give out to these young Latin American players, it's already been verbally allocated. So when Sasaki comes in at 11:30 p.m. and is like, I'm here and I probably want $2.5 million, which is his right, as he should. Teams are going to go back to the kids that they agreed with deals on and be like, hey, I know we said we'd give you $2 million. What if we gave you 1.2 so that we can give Roki Sasaki some money? And it has the potential to basically reflood the market with talent at the last hour of this. Not everybody and not every team is going to do this, and there's a chance it doesn't happen. But in talking to people who are in that market and very familiar with it, there's an overwhelming sense that Sasaki's arrival is going to upend a couple of previously agreed upon deals.
Yeah, and I think obviously he can only sign with one team. So if you focus on it and just be like, well, only one team is going to give the money, it's going to depend on, as you wrote, like how far it drags out. Because if teams think they have a chance, they might wait to try and, sign those deals. Now, this is also an important part about this. He is not going to be allowed to sign until January 15th. However, we expect that he will be posted officially in the early stages of December, at which point he will start having the meetings with teams and whatnot. In the same way that we already know where the top Dominican shortstops are signing or verbally agreed to in most cases, there's a good chance we will know who Sasaki has agreed with long before January 15th, but he will not be able to officially sign before then. And it is possible we don't know up until that point, because if he is going to go through this whole process and teams are going to have to figure out how exactly and how much exactly they are going to be agreeing to a bonus with him, we're still in the early stages of knowing just how they are going to do this process. But that is, as you wrote about, there is potential for some messy stuff happening here. And it's super unfortunate because I don't really know. It's more of a product of the rules than it is teams necessarily acting more nefarious than normal, because it's like, yeah, of course they would go after Roki Sasaki instead of anybody else in the pool. That is just a logical baseball decision.
Yeah.
It's just an unfortunate consequence.
I asked a scout down there, would you rather have Sasaki or the top 10 ranked players in the Latin American class for the same amount of money, for let's say $8 million? He said Sasaki. And that's because all these amateurs are lottery tickets. Now, a lot of them are good lottery tickets with good odds who are going to become some of baseball's best players. And that's why that market is important for teams to be, involved in. But Sasaki is going to play in the major leagues next year. The risk there is completely different than it is. And so for these two to be lumped together, that's the problem. I could talk for hours about how the international amateur free agent market is just broken and deplorable and unsavory and needs fixing. I'm very passionate about it. It's very nitty-gritty inside baseball. But just understand that there's a really big ripple effect here with Sasaki.
Yes. The last Sasaki thing that I wanted to mention is that obviously another part of this process, especially now that this is going to roll over to the next period, part of the expectation and the rumors involving, he's just got to deal with the Dodgers, is the fact that in the current period, the Dodgers still have the most money. And people around the game look at that and say, well, that can't be an accident. The Dodgers must have been preparing for the situation where Sasaki was potentially going to be posted during the 2024 period, at which point they would be in position to offer him the most money. Maybe he ends up with the Dodgers, maybe he doesn't. Now more teams will be in better position to offer him larger amounts of money, pending all the complications that we just described with previously agreed upon deals. However, I do think it is notable that Sasaki's agent, Joel Wolf, of Wasserman, who also represented Yamamoto last year and Darvish and has represented a bunch of the stars that have come over from Japan, he was asked about the notion of like the Dodgers having a prearranged deal, and he gave this statement to The Athletic. Quote, while a bunch of executives who should know me better and do a lot of business with me insult my integrity by insinuating that I would be part of some type of nefarious agreement, in reality, this is just poor sportsmanship. Rob Manfred was also asked about this, and he was basically like, listen, if there's any sort of prearranged deal, like we are going to be cracking down on that. It still possibly ends up with the Dodgers, and they're not found to be anything nefarious have happened. But I do think that this is a notable plot point of both the league and the agent trying to get out and be like, listen, this is not how this is going to work. You can call BS on it and roll your eyes. That's fine. I totally understand that. But I do at least appreciate that this has been acknowledged, because Joel Wolf didn't have to respond to the text answering about this. And I think this, to me, I at least appreciate that. Like, this is a strong statement to at least put out there. And it does kind of have set up an interesting, situation that now people will roll their eyes, especially if he does end up with them. But I am just vaguely going to predict that he is not ending up with the Dodgers. So I'm just going to say that I don't think he's going to end up there. But we'll see.
To me, this is the very beginning of an industry getting jealous and wary of the Dodgers' structural advantages that they do have. And I think that it will only get worse and more notable as they keep winning, where it's teams be like, oh, well, something has to be amiss. Well, dude, if you're Roki Sasaki, wouldn't you want to go live in LA and be with Ohtani and Yamamoto and like be on the team that just won the World Series? That's not nefarious. That's logical.
Common sense, right? We talked about that, right? With when we had Yuri on, like there's a lot of reasons why you would want to go to the Dodgers. But I do think it was interesting that has been acknowledged up front, because it is something that has certainly been rattling around the industry leading up to this. And now that it will go to the next period, and it's not about the $2.5 million the Dodgers still have, it becomes a little bit of a different story.
And now it's time for the good, the bad, and the Uggla. One thing good from the week, one thing bad, and one thing that reminds us of Dan Uggla, weird, bizarre, wonky, abnormal. My good friend Jordan Shusterman, be good for me.
My good this week is Samurai Japan, who won once again earlier today against Venezuela. And I just want to shout out this team because Japanese baseball, of course, been on my mind since our interview with Yuri, since all the Sasaki stuff. And this team, the senior national team, has now won like 27 games in a row dating back to 2019. And I just think that is ridiculously cool. And the fact that they are rolling out like their B or C team in this Premier 12 tournament and still kicking everyone's ass, including Team USA yesterday, is just awesome. And I love them being the international baseball power. And I hope that all of us learn more about these players all the time, not just when they're coming over from NPB.
Watching Japan kick America's butt makes me want to get in the gym, and I hope it makes all of the best American pitchers want to play in the WBC the next time around. My good is also Japanese related. Shohei Ohtani showed up to the MVP. I did it. I won. I'm the best interview with a new translator. Obviously, Ohtani had Ippei Mizuhara. He did some crimes and is not in the picture anymore. And for the 2024 season, the Dodgers paired him with a gentleman named Will Ireton. Will did not go into spring training thinking he was going to be Ohtani's translator, but did an admirable job. Now, maybe Will is going to be coming back for next season. But during this interview, Ohtani was paired with someone named Matt Hidaka, who translated for Ohtani in 2017 at Ohtani's introductory press conference with the Angels, and just hasn't been seen around him since, and is just around again. Good for Will Ireton, who can do the job he thought he was going to be doing, and good for Matt Hidaka re-entering our lives.
At the very least, I like, there's a few ways that this could go, right? It's possible that they wanted that Will Ireton is still going to be the guy. And they were like, man, we can't reach Will. It's like, Will is on a beach somewhere. Will does not need to be showing up at the end of November to, interpret for Ohtani for his latest MVP celebration. But the fact that it is the same guy that we saw in Ohtani's intro, I remember kind of realizing this last year during Ohtani's free agency, going back and watching his initial stuff back when he first signed with the Angels and seeing Matt Hidaka and being like, who's that? Like, I had no recollection of that. Like, and Ippei was there at the start of his first spring training with the Angels. So I'm excited to learn more about Matt Hidaka if he is going, hopefully all good things. As we know, this sequence did not turn out to be a good thing with Ippei. So I don't know his background or anything, but I am very interested to see if he is going to be a main character next to Ohtani in the 2025 season. We will see. Very interesting.
Jordan, what's bad?
Scott Boras. Is Scott Boras bad at his job, Jake? We have a massive update to the Scott Boras scoreboard. Now, before we get to this update, we have to give credit to Alex, who emailed us the last time we talked about the Scott Boras scoreboard. And he said, call it the Scobo? I don't know, just a silly thought I had. Alex,
winner.
Not a silly thought. Brilliant thought. The Scobo is officially in effect. And my goodness, Scobo has taken another L with the reporting from ESPN's Kylie McDaniel that one Cal Raleigh, MVP vote getter, has departed the Boras Corp in favor of Excel Sports Management. That is another client that he has lost. We gave Boras an L for losing Adrian Morahone, and then we were like, how big of a deal is that? You lose Adrian Morahone. Cal Raleigh is one of the best catchers in baseball. And if Scott Boras is losing Cal Raleigh, that is an unquestionable L that we have to give him to the Scobo. And this also is, by the way, something that has actually been happening with more guys than we realized. And we're not going to give him additional L's here. We're going to keep it current. But the fact that he has lost not just Raleigh, not just Morahone, Nick Castellanos left to Scobo earlier in October. Jerkson Profar is apparently no longer represented by Scott Boras. That was a miss on my part. He changed agencies before last season. So this is a big deal that the Scobo is down where it is.
And you could throw it up on the Scobo. So far this winter, that has him like 14th place in the table, right around Southampton.
14th place does scream Southampton, at least the last time I followed soccer. So that is bad. Scott Boras losing Cal Raleigh, possibly very good for the Seattle Mariners if they want an extension, but we'll save that if that actually happens. Jake, what is bad for you?
My bad is the Tropicana Field Tampa Bay Rays drama. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, but here's the upshot. The Tampa Bay Rays were supposed to have a new stadium being built to open in 2028. Then there was a hurricane that blew the roof off their current stadium. And that the resulting fallout from that seems to have completely soured the relationship between the local city council in St. Petersburg and the Tampa Bay Rays. They are fighting publicly. It has gotten very messy. And now it is very uncertain if the Rays will ever play there again in the Trop, or whether they'll stay in Tampa for the long term. And that is just flat out bad. I think maybe next week, I guess it's Thanksgiving week, I'd love to have someone local on to kind of explain to me like I'm 10 years old about what is going on in Tampa.
Yeah, no, I mean, the future, again, we thought that this was maybe heading towards a positive resolution in Tampa Bay with the new stadium in St. Petersburg. That was our sense a few months ago. Obviously, the hurricane has changed a lot about that calculus, and the communication and interactions between the city and the team are not in a good place. And so that is a very big deal for a lot of reasons, because, Manfred has talked about the next step for expansion needing to have the stadium resolution in both Tampa Bay or in Tampa and with Oakland. Okay, maybe Vegas does actually happen, but now if the Rays thing is up in the air, that changes the calculus for maybe getting expansion at some point during Rob Manfred's tenure as commissioner. Again, what's most important right now is the Rays, and not just where they're playing in 2025, but 2026, 2027. This is a very important story, and we will continue to track it. But I agree, it is definitely bad, and kind of bums me out because it is getting pretty messy.
What's your Uggla?
My Uggla is Greg Bird.
What? Yankees fans.
It's very simple. Greg Bird last year, he's just been in Mexico and Indy ball the last few years. He actually played for Scranton in 2022, but never made it back up with the Yankees. But last winter, he went down to Australia and dominated.
Yeah.
It was like, Greg Bird, what's going on? Greg Bird's in Melbourne hitting homers. And Greg Bird had such a good time that he went back. And in his second game this winter with the Melbourne Aces, he hit 3 home runs. So my Uggla is that Greg Bird, it's one thing to have a relationship with a Dominican team or a Mexican team. It's like, oh, I'll go back down and make a few $1,000, but going to Australia is not a small thing. And I love that Greg Bird, who's still only 31, is now, I hope that he just goes to Australia every winter for the next 10 years and just becomes the all-time home run leader. I think that would be an amazing thing. And if he's homering 3 times every game, I think he's got a good shot.
Related, the national bird of Australia is the emu. So we got to call him Greg Emu.
All right. We will work on that. Jake, what is your Uggla?
Minute Maid Park is dead. Long live Minute Maid Park. The Astros home stadium is no longer named after juice. They have a new moniker on the ball yard. It is now Daikin Park, named after a company from Japan that makes air conditioning units.
World's largest AC manufacturer. Let's put some respect on their name.
A couple things. One, having nostalgia for a juice brand is hilarious and also fair, because Minute Maid Park rolled off the tongue and it made sense to us and it was whimsical. 2, air conditioning company sponsoring the coldest indoor stadium. Appropriate.
We love that.
Pro tip. You ever go to an Astros game that's inside? Bring a jacket. Okay. It's nippy in there.
Yeah.
3, we got to call it the ice box now. It was the juice box. Now it's the ice box. 4, they're paying the Astros, Daikin, 15 years for $140 million. Hilarious contract. What player would get that deal? 15, 140. Impossible. Bobby Witt with one arm, maybe.
Yeah. I was going to say that is a long contract. How many free agent contracts will exceed 140 million this winter? Pete Alonso is going to be the answer to that question. Like where he ends up is going to determine whether that answer is 5 or 6. I guess Max Fried or Snell if they get less than that on a shorter term deal. But that's an interesting 140 is a good kind of baseline to beat.
You know who should get 15140? Caleb Durbin. Also, they have the train in left field.
Yes.
Which has had oranges in it forever.
Yes.
Does it still have oranges because of Minute Maid's dead? Or are they what are they gonna put in there?
That was the first question to Jim Cray in the press conference, and he said they have something planned that they will reveal on opening day. So we will find out. I will say if this does feel super random, it is worth noting because I believe this is the first international company to get MLB ballpark naming rights, which is kind of interesting. But Daikin has a massive factory like northwest of Houston, like one of the largest factories in the United States. So they employ a bunch of people in the Houston area. So that kind of makes sense as a connection there. But I will say this about the name change, even though we did like Minute Maid because it rolled off the tongue. I do appreciate that this is kind of a short and sweet situation. I mean, the the American Family Field guaranteed rate, like we've just gotten all these like insurance things that are just so clunky and unpleasant. Like this is at least easy to say, and we can just, it'll be short. Like all the branding is a lot more straightforward, which I appreciate. One more thing on this final Uggla. This is a good thing to end on, Jake. This just made me laugh so much. The Astros senior vice president of corporate partnerships gave this quote: "Daikin fit all of other criteria we set out to find in a naming rights partner. Their name and reputation, their name and reputation fit our iconic downtown Houston home. The values mesh perfectly with those of the Astros. The Astros senior VP of corporate partnerships, his name is Matt Brand." That is one of the best names I have seen for somebody who is involved in corporate partnerships. Matt Brand, the corporate superhero. I'm very happy for Matt Brand. Big day for him.
Good day for the brand. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Baseball Barbacast. Thank you to Andrew Hartz for producing. Thank you to Caleb Durbin for never striking out and for giving some of his precious time. Thank you to you, Jordan. Thank you to me. Thank you to the listeners. We will be back on Monday. Maybe crack open the mailbag. Email us, baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. Goodbye.